Today, we'll be looking at why everything about retirement changes at age 62. One of our favorite things about working with clients around the 62 mark is just seeing how quickly things can change for them. But unfortunately, many retirees fall into the trap of not fully understanding the opportunities available to all retirees at this age. That's why in today's video, we're going to walk through 3 changes that happen at 62 and how you can identify them and use them to your advantage. So let's get right into it. The first change is that tax optimization gets easier. You see, most retirees have concentrated their savings in tax-deferred accounts, and many times they like to begin to reposition those into a Roth. So there are 2 key components here, and they're both available to anyone that is age 62. Actually, technically 59 and a half is when you get access to this, but 62 is a good age reference point for here, which is the first one is that you can do in-service distributions from a 401k into an IRA without leaving your employer. And then that can allow you to do those Roth conversions if you don't have a Roth option in your 401k. This means that every 365 days a person, and again, let's say you're 62 years old, you can roll money from a 401k into an IRA for the purpose of doing conversions. The second one is that you can pay the tax for the Roth conversion from the qualified funds and not pay a 10% penalty. Of course, it is almost always best to pay taxes from outside sources rather than a 401k if possible, but there are many people who can't do that and instead just pay the taxes from the IRA or 401k. Well, you no longer have that 10% problem. And that flexibility is pretty nice. We have a client here at Rubino & Lang Wealth Partners. Let's call him Peter. And he's a good example of what I'm talking about. Peter is single. His retirement income is made up of a strong union pension, Social Security benefits, and a pretty large 401k that he had accumulated over the years. And he knew that he was going to be okay financially, but his major goal was to give his daughter a significant inheritance. But because all of his income sources, he was going to be in a moderately high tax bracket for his entire life. He wasn't sure how he would be able to maximize his legacy for her. When he discovered what happens to that 10% penalty once you turn 59 and a half, it really transformed his inheritance plan because, remember, you can now access your funds without that 10% additional penalty. So in Peter's case, it gave him more years to do the tax and legacy planning because he could start strategic Roth conversions as soon as he came in to see us at age 62. And because he had no money saved anywhere else outside of that 401k, he had to pay taxes from it. And this really changed the outcome for him because even though he was single, and single people don't typically benefit as much from Roth conversions because they're always in that single individual tax filing status, in Peter's case, he was really concerned about passing that money on to his daughter and paying the least amount of taxes possible. And by giving his daughter a Roth IRA as an inheritance, rather than his 401k, she could let it grow for an additional 10 years after his passing, tax-deferred and tax-free. And not only that, if Peter continues to do these strategic wealth conversions each year, it's estimated that his family will save almost $200,000 in taxes over his lifetime. So even if a person isn't in the specific situation that Peter's in, an important thing to remember here is that the flexibility allows you to be strategic about your tax planning and your future withdrawal planning and can give you a more predictable retirement income. It can also give you more control over how and when you pay your taxes. And not to get into it in this video, but there are various tax planning opportunities, like opportunities to avoid surprise tax hits, if you use different accounts that are taxed various ways rather than only your traditional 401k. And when you saved your retirement savings in different tax type accounts, you'll want to be very strategic about which accounts you withdraw from, creating that steady monthly income. Now, if you want to be strategic about your taxes, it's going to involve 2 things, and these are 2 things that we've built into our practice here at Rubino & Lang Wealth Partners. First, you're going to want to have a framework looking forward into the next 20 plus years, and that framework is choosing a strategy that works best for you. That could be a strategy of filling up certain tax brackets each year. It could be a Roth conversion strategy. It could be something that's called a pro rata strategy. And all that is it's a general framework about which way will benefit you the most from which accounts you take money from each year. And the second thing is once you have your general strategy and your framework, you want to revisit it on a year-by-year basis. And the practical way that we do that at Rubino & Lang Wealth is that we collect our client's 1040 tax filing. We'll analyze that tax return with a multi-point analysis, and we use that data to inform our strategic planning for the year. but also to fulfill whatever tax-efficient withdrawal strategy or Roth conversion strategy that the framework is leading us to. Now, as a quick side note, one of the biggest problems in this YouTube space is that with most content, whether that be tax planning, retirement savings, or Social Security, the advice is always pretty generalized. The main issue with this is that it leads to fear-based retirement planning, where you start to make irrational decisions about your retirement simply out of fear. So to solve this problem, we've created a complimentary quiz to help people figure out if they're on track to retire, given their situation and retirement goals. After you fill out the questionnaire in a couple of days, you'll receive a personalized video in your inbox from a financial advisor here at the firm that will run through your exact situation and answer the big, can I afford to retire question. To give it a try, click on the link in the description. Now, let's get back to the video. Another thing that often comes up when we see people at age 62 is that you're closer to not needing your workplace healthcare, but you don't quite qualify for Medicare yet. Many people delay retirement because they're unsure about what to do, and there is this general sense that healthcare is too much of a wild card and it's super difficult to plan for. Let's use Glenn and Lori as an example. Lori watched her mother struggle to cover healthcare needs when she found herself in need of long-term care services. And what she said her family went through during that time, the family scrambling to make decisions, to try and find information, that caused Glenn and Lori to realize how unprepared they were for their own healthcare needs in retirement. What they discovered about planning for their healthcare after 62 would transform the way that they feel not only about retiring at 67, but potentially even retiring earlier. They found that it was a good window of time for them to take the time to sort out their healthcare planning for future retirement. First of all, when you're 62, you still have time to learn about how to include a proper healthcare budget in your retirement plan, because you're getting close enough to 65 that you can get the information that you need. Glenn and Lori learned what Medicare will and will not cover, and they included a budget in their plan for the 3 areas of healthcare in retirement, which are your Medicare premiums, your out-of-pocket costs, and your custodial care needs. And once they did that, they could see that they were more on track to retire at 67. In fact, they found out that they could afford to pay for private healthcare to bridge the gap between retiring at their current age of 62 and 65 when Medicare begins. A lot of people won't even consider retiring before 65 because they automatically resist paying for private healthcare out of their pocket. But sometimes it's actually a gift that you can give yourself. By paying for private healthcare out of pocket from, let's use Glenn and Lori as the example here, the ages of 62 to 65, you give yourself the gift of years of summers that you can experience on your terms, not work. Now, we've rarely met someone who's retired who didn't say, I wish I had retired sooner. Yeah, it costs more, and of course, waiting until after you're 65 to retire helps if you have underfunded your retirement. But oftentimes, when we're more accurate about our planning for healthcare, we realize that we may have oversaved for retirement. And maybe, just maybe, it's more expensive for you to die overly rich. So for Glenn and Lori, their understanding of Medicare and their long-term care options in advance, and because of this, they were able to remove one of the biggest uncertainties that keeps people working longer than necessary. But understanding healthcare costs in advance can also give you something else, and that is you could use the time to set aside funds to cover the healthcare gap and even give yourself a 1 or 2 year earlier retirement as a gift. Or that knowledge can motivate you to create a healthcare emergency fund to cover out-of-pocket costs, or maybe inspire you to max out your HSA if you have one. For Glenn and Lori, it was really a game changer because having watched her mother's crisis, they were able to put to rest their concerns about being prepared for their own needs in retirement. And it can help prevent that scramble for information and the decisions that their family had experienced a few years prior. Now, the third change that you'll face in retirement or at age 62 as you near retirement is that retirement wall of 65. And that's something that's very common. And if you've never heard of it before, it's basically that mounting pressure that many people who are over the age of 60 start to feel about getting ready to turn 65 and being ready for retirement. Am I ready for retirement? Have I saved enough? Can I maintain my lifestyle? Traditionally, people tend to use arbitrary numbers like some magic number or the rule of thumb, like you need to have 8 times your salary by age 65, or if you have 25 times your distribution needs from your portfolio, you're okay because 25 times equates to the 4% withdrawal rule. But this lack of individual consideration makes people feel like a number. It makes them feel like they're missing something personal. And the old way of doing this might have worked maybe 15, 20 years ago, but it doesn't work now. The world of retirement planning has changed, and the old tools weren't built for today's challenges. So now that you know why you need to stop waiting to retire, you need to understand this one thing. This advice only shows you part of the picture. Many successful retirees weren't the richest or had the best savings plan. They simply had the best strategy. And that comes down to getting personalized advice instead of following general financial advice online. So to help as many people as possible with that, we've put together this complimentary questionnaire. Once you complete it, you'll get a personalized video walking through if you can afford to retire using your exact numbers. Just click on the link below, fill out the questionnaire, and within a couple of days, you'll have that personalized video for your situation. Until next time, take care.